Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand. I am your host, Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal branding and business development company. I want to take you on a journey that takes another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal story, business conversations, and tips to improve your personal brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand podcast series, you will be able to differentiate yourself from the competition and allow you to build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build trust, and reflect who you are. Developing your 5-star personal brand is a great way to demonstrate your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh, spelled M-C-G-A-U-G-H, at 5-star BDM, B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. Now let's begin with our next 5-star episode on Follow the Brand. Welcome to the Follow the Brand podcast. I'm your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, where we help you to build a 5-star brand that people will follow. As human beings, our identity is made up of all the people that lived before us. The ability to have continued conversations with people either living or not in an interactive platform is a blessing, says my next guest, Heather Maio Smith. She drives a deeper connection with family, business, and people through conversational video services. Heather Smith is an experiential exhibit designer who has exhibited in Los Angeles, Cuba, and the United Nations. Heather was the concept creator and producer of New Dimensions in Testimony, the technology behind future generations being able to have a conversation with a Holocaust survivor. Heather partnered with the USC Shoah Foundation on New Dimensions in Testimony to develop a new interview methodology. Heather now serves as the Chief Visionary Officer of StoryFile, an interactive conversational video AI platform that uses advanced natural language processing and artificial intelligence to make video interaction feel just like a real conversation. StoryFile's technology will allow people to have conversations with video, removing the boundaries of time and space so that we can experience all kinds of conversations and learn from individuals whenever and wherever we want. At the heart of Heather's work is the underlying need to share, preserve, and learn from the human experience. Heather's work has been featured on NBC's The Today Show, The New Yorker, the BBC, and on 60 Minutes. Heather had always intended to use the interactive concept she had created to preserve the stories of humanity for future generations. In 2017, she launched StoryFile to create a cloud-based, no-code, automatic platform that would bring the power of conversational video into everyone's hands. StoryFile is revolutionizing the way we connect with each other by introducing conversational video with audio-visual technology at the forefront of this generation. StoryFile magically turns video into a conversation through the click of a button. This next generation of technology uses artificial intelligence to support video conversations on any device. StoryFile transforms traditional one-way video into a two-way conversation. This is the biggest audio-visual evolution since video was first created. Let us welcome Heather Maio Smith to the Follow the Brand podcast, where we are building a 5-star brand that you can follow. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special week on the Follow the Brand podcast. We have Heather Smith is going to talk to us about her story, what makes her special, and what is she solving with her speciality. Now, you know me, I like to have good stories. I want to sit around this particular campfire and listen in as we begin to unpack what is good, what is different, what is the intrigue, and I'm going to help move this story to a point of absolute awe. How about that? So, Heather, you want to say hello?
I would love to say hello. Thank you. And thank you for having me. That's a pretty tall order, though. I don't consider myself special per se, but yeah, let's get into it.
Well, let's get right to it because I think you're special. And that's really what it's about. You know, a brand is about perception. You know, what perception is reality. And that is the reality for me. And I'm sure that'll be the reality for our audience as we get to your story. So let's just start real quick. Tell us, kind of a little bit more about yourself, what you're doing, and how we can further this conversation.
So a lot of you probably don't know this because it's kind of a new thing. But in the future, near future, everyone will be able to tell their story, will have what's called a StoryFile. And future generations will be able to ask you questions and talk to you and get to know you through this. So, everybody has a story to tell, like you and I were just talking about, and we want everyone, literally everyone, to be able to tell their story. And so we built this platform called StoryFile Life, and it enables you, takes you through your whole life, and it asks you a bunch of questions, whatever questions you want to answer. It enables you to tell it in a way that others can have a conversation like you and I are having. So if you ask me a question and I answer, and then I ask you a question, you answer, but this is more of a one way. You're just asking this person questions as if you're interviewing them, and you get to know them.
This sounds very interesting. So you're saying, let me make sure I get this right. This is like you're an artificial intelligence. I assume that you're not present, and maybe you've passed on, and your future generations not like, wow, I wonder what grandmother Heather was really like. I've heard a lot about her, but let's ask her some questions. And I would assume that you've answered a catalog. This is a library of information about you. And that whether, maybe a 5-year-old, maybe a 10-year-old would begin to ask. And then instead of reading it in a book or looking at some old pictures, and maybe you have a relative that could tell some of that story, but maybe not accurately. I'm starting to get this, this futuristic family tree, right? That this just pops out and you become a living thing. Am I right?
But you get it from your ancestors. You get your ancestors' story in their own words. You hear them telling the story. It's not gone through, generations of telephone and turned into something mythical. So much of our conversations are actually nonverbal. And so if you don't do video, like you mentioned, a book, or photos or things like that, if you don't do video, then they're missing half of who you are. You can't, you don't communicate to them who you really are, because we all do that through body language. So it's really, really important to video record all of these answers to these questions. And we take you through your whole life, if you'd like, your childhood, your teenage years, college, and, wherever life takes you after that, whatever your journey was, you get a chance to talk about all of it. You can, tell all the great stories that you tell at every Thanksgiving dinner around the table, that your kids are probably sick of hearing, but it really gives you a chance to get to know somebody that you might otherwise not have ever met or experienced. And as human beings, our identity is made up of all the people that lived before us and all the stories you hear when you're a kid, and everything affects who we are as individuals. So if I have the opportunity to affect someone, 50, 60 years from now, and maybe, pass something on, or, create some form of their identity, then why wouldn't I do it?
So. Of course you would. I would love to go back in time. I remember my grandmother always talking about her grandmother or her mother, or even my mother talking about people that, oh yeah, well, they were, they've passed on. You weren't born yet, and that type of thing. And they're talking about this person like they were sitting right next to you, right? And you're like, wow, I wish, I'm not part of that time period. Yeah. So my question to ask you is, like, what motivated you to get involved with this type of innovation?
Okay, so you asked me earlier what makes me special. I think that one thing I'm constantly surprised at that more people don't do well is put two and two together. They might see something and it doesn't click that, oh, if you could do this, why can't you do this? So I was in, I'll shorten this story for you a bit, but I was in Holocaust education, and the one magical thing that we kept seeing over and over again was that the survivors would go into, schools and libraries and, universities, and they would tell their story. And then the kids or adults or whomever was in the audience would have a chance to ask a couple questions in the Q&A. And what we noticed was that during the Q&A, the energy shifts, right? And all of a sudden, everyone becomes really engaged and you want to ask your question. Unfortunately, some of those people, even you've probably gone out, given lectures, and the audience opens up to Q&A, and you can't answer enough questions at that point. You have to leave. So we wanted to, we were all worried what's going to happen to Holocaust education and the way that we understand World War II after these people are no longer around and they're no longer alive anymore. So there's got to be a way. We've captured their stories. We've done interviews with them. We've done, movies. We've written books, et cetera, et cetera. But we hadn't captured that ability to just sit and have the conversation that I want to have, the questions that I want to ask, not listening to someone else's questions that they're asking. So I partnered with a couple different institutes to develop this, and we didn't know at the time whether or not it would work. But the vision was I wanted to be able to sit at my kitchen table and sit across from you and just have a conversation with you, whether you were alive or not alive, whether you were president of the United States and, you couldn't be there in person with me, obviously. So I just wanted to be able to ask you questions, or whether you were my great-great-grandmother and I just had a question about how did you come to this country? Or, how did you meet your husband? And, what was your marriage like? Just different questions. And you find it, your life, you have these different questions at different points in your life. So we wanted people to be able to continue to have those conversations. So we built this program. It was called Dimensions in Testimony. And we ended up filming, about, I don't know, I think they've filmed 50 Holocaust survivors this way already. And the one question that I kept getting from the public when I would go into the public and have them talk to these survivors, the way that we had video recorded them answering, thousands of questions. And the public, I needed the public to actually talk to these individuals so that the artificial intelligence would be trained. So as we're doing that, I'm taking it around the world. The one question I keep getting, can I do this myself? Can I do this with my grandparents? Can I do this with my parents? Can I do this for my kids? Can I do this with the founder of our company? Can I do, just relentless. And so finally you have to say to yourself, okay, how would you make this ubiquitous for people? I mean, think about it. We wake up in the morning, we ask questions. So you're on a company's FAQ page and you want to know something, and it routes you to their FAQ page, right? Why can't you just verbally ask the question and someone comes up and they just give you the answer? It's like I don't have to go through 20 pages of Google to get an answer when I could just ask somebody who's been through that experience and talk to them and ask them the questions that I want to ask, and hear their story, learn about them. So we formed StoryFile in order to build a system and build a technology that would allow all of these conversations to happen and allow other people to actually produce and create these conversations themselves. So we didn't have to do all of them ourselves,
That sounds like a really in-depth program. I love it, really. The video log. I'm just reminded of some of these sci-fi movies that I've seen. I remember was it iRobot. He's still like part of the whole scene, even though he's passed on. He's giving all the clues. He's telling all the story. You just kind of walking through there, and I could see like certain things that you would want to ask. Let's say you had a certain ailment, and that it was hereditary, and that you probably like right now. He's like, yeah, you know what? I did inherit, a certain ailment, and then I know somebody in the future is probably going to know about this, and then you could talk through it, and then they can access that file. So my question is, how do you? Is it a software that you download, or tell me how a person would get access to the application?
So if you're a consumer and you want to do it for your family, it's a regular website. It's called StoryFile Life, and you go on there, sign up, and you can pick out all the questions you want to ask your relative, or if you want to do it yourself for you, you can add your own questions in there, and then you just start recording yourself. It asks you the question, and you just answer. And you've got your camera on, whatever camera. You could use your phone, your laptop, computer, whatever you want. You could do really, a little bit better recording. Maybe if you want to use a webcam or lights and, set it up. But however you want to do it, it's you. It's about you, and it's supposed to convey who you are. So we encourage everybody just to do it the way.
Now, here's my question, and you may or may not be able to answer this. Because let's say, remember, it's in the future. Like right now, if you recorded something, let's say on a phonograph, and you don't have a phonograph anymore, or a record player, how would you play it? So are you thinking through that? Like, all right, we've got this file, it's an MP4 file, but now we'll continuously upgrade over time, or is that come up in your conversations?
Very interesting question, because unless you've got the machine to read it, you can't do it. All of the video files and everything are in the cloud, and they're digitized and they're online, and they're being stored by StoryFile. So no, we're not worried about you accessing the video file. As long as the internet is around, you can access it.
Okay, or some type of form, because I can see right now we're all talking about metaverse, and maybe you're walking through a virtual world and you go to your metaverse. I'm gonna say virtual store. Let's say.
You can do it in the meta. You can create. You would be using the real you.
Yeah.
And you can be in the metaverse and talking to people, or so what I didn't mention was there's a consumer version that's the StoryFile Life, and then there's a business SaaS product SaaS platform, and that's called Conversa. And so companies can go in and they can create any kind of videos that they want, real people, like the CEO could do a story file, and all the employees, everybody could talk to them and get to know them, whereas they might not have had the chance to do that. But companies can use that to create anything and have real life conversations with their staff and, your customers. Think of like I described the customer FAQ earlier, your HR onboarding, your corporate training. We have one company that was doing a project called Financial Mentor, and it's a great project where all the new store managers can actually have in their pocket, basically, because it's on their phone, on their smartphone. They could just, if they have a question about the store or what to do, they just click it, open it, and ask the person. Ask your mentor right there. What do I do?
You know what? I've seen that. Not so much that exact application, but we called it micro learning. So, like I said, if you were an employee, you're coming across a piece of equipment or a process, a workflow process, you're not that familiar with it. You have either a portal or something that's there, and you would ask about, like, how does this work? And it would immediately walk you through either a 3D experience or a 5-minute presentation on exactly how this works. And now you immediately, it's almost like, I keep going to these sci-fi movies. I just remember they would come in, they would put in their jacket, and all of a sudden they became a kung fu expert because they knew everything, right? So,
so you're right. But in order to access that video, you have to search it, and you have to search, and you have to go scroll through all the videos and say, "Oh, this is the one I want." Right? Why can't you just ask the individual? Tell me how it works.
You could have like you said, your application is right there at the station or wherever it is. Right. And you just say, "Hey, tell me how this Heather Smith application works." And it just, boom, it just, it just tells you everything. And then you got historic. So now I'm getting more, you have a lot of use cases. It's not just, you can use it for the future family episode. You could use it in real time right now for training applications. You can use it in a 2D setting. You can use it in a 3D virtual world setting. So you've got a pretty cool idea. How long have your company been doing this?
I came up with the concept of, and we call it conversational video. So I came up with the concept in early 2010. And this is, so don't forget, this is kind of before Skype and Siri and all of this. But when I started this podcast with you, I said that the interesting thing about it is I was able to put 2 and 2 together. And so I said to myself, okay, if you can do this, you should be able to do this. And I knew that they were working on a lot of different technologies. I'm not a tech person at all, but it seemed to me that you should be able to do it. And we knew that the speech recognition was only going to get better. At that time, it was non-existent, but it was on the rise, and it was going to be a thing. So, yeah, it took a while to convince people. That was really interesting because I'm in LA. We went to people that I thought had vision and like were really super creative and da da da. And everyone looked at me like I was literally insane. Oh, you want to talk to dead people? Like just how do you think, what do you mean you want to talk to people and they're not even there? And so it took me about 2 years to just convince these 2 institutes, first of all, to work together, but then to work with me on this. And I had an ally, though, in the executive director of the USC Shoah Foundation at the time. who I ended up through all of this marrying, but that's another story. He had also written his PhD thesis. The last part of it was, we have to we have to get to know these people through conversation, because it's not enough to just read a book or hear a story or ask, or get a narrative testimony. You have to actually ask questions and pull it out of people, So he understood from the very beginning what I wanted to do. And then it was just a matter of, all right, how are you going to do it? And building it. There was a lot to do.
Well, all first starts with the idea. Yeah. And I love the idea because the interactive piece of it, the conversation. So you're just not viewing an old video, of something that happened a long time ago. You're actually participating in the whole scenario, which I think is awesome. Now I want to ask you, because you had to craft the idea, and then you had to pitch the idea, right? And then did you bootstrap this whole thing, or did you get funding?
Still pitching it. No, we had this. So the partnership that I talked about earlier was with the Shoah Foundation, the USC Shoah Foundation, and with the USC's Institute for Creative Technologies, and more on how I found them. But they're both non-for-profit. So we had to actually raise the funds to do it. It wasn't, we bootstrapped, for the first couple of years, but we had to raise a considerable amount of money to do it. Yeah.
I would imagine that kind of technology, cloud, where you said you've been working on it for 12 years, it's a phenomenal investment that you had to make. But I would tell you, once you just start, and this is 2022, so you start, remember, I've had 12 years of sci-fi movies, right? So, but I come from a large family. We're celebrating our 105th family reunion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's we have it every year. It's perennial. It's the Brian Fisher family. We're in the Guinness Book of World Records. The longest running African-American family in Nebraska. Then we have 2,000 descendants. But think if we had...
Okay, you guys need to do story files with all these people.
Absolutely. And we're, some people, some of the originals.
Oh my God. We have to come do story files of all the stories. You guys must have amazing stories.
Amazing story. We have historians. We have people that can really talk through all of those things.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of thing I see that you travel to all the family reunions all over the country. Boom, you got a willing audience, right? So is it a subscription-based model? How does it pay for?
Right now, it's not a subscription. So I would encourage everybody to do it now. We wanted people to not worry about whether or not it was going to be there, and not worry about future generations paying for it and things like that. So no, it's not a subscription base, and if I had my way, it would stay that way. It's there are one-time fees, and you pay for it and you go. You do your own thing for as long as you want to.
It doesn't matter how big. It could be one person. It could be 1,000 people in the video log. It's still the same price, or is it?
It's for each individual.
So it's per individual.
It's an individual story file. So it'd be your story file.
Okay. And if it's a corporation, it doesn't matter. It's still by that person. That's the identifier.
Well, if it's a corporation, those are different accounts. So that's a SaaS software where it's a little bit more involved in it. They are going to do kind of different kind of productions, actually. So it's a bit more involved, let's say, and complex for a company to do it versus a person.
So now I'm curious because I talked to a lot of different health IT companies. I talked to a lot of startups, people that are in technology innovation, and they go through this life cycle. First the idea, and then you got to create the platform. You've got to get investors. You've got to then get seed rounds and all of that. Walk us through that. How was that? I mean, first, this was your baby, and then you watch your baby kind of grow and change and morph into this whole thing that it is now.
Isn't that the funnest part? you know, when you have a kid and you're like, I want to know what they're going to be like when they're adults, you know? It's been quite a journey. Yeah. It's been 12 years and all of it, you know, not knowing whether you're going to be able to survive next month. I've gone through all of that. I've gone through so many, like I said, it was really difficult to convince people in the very beginning. But we did it. You know, you just keep persisting. I'm a very persistent person, I guess.
Well, you believe in something. You have to have the passion and the belief, and then that drives you. I tell you, say, if you're not waking up at 2 a.m. To grow your business, then you don't have the passion that it's going to take to really watch it take off and flourish. And I appreciate you doing that. And I'm sure this is going to be very, very good. I want to ask you, because I talked to a lot of people about coaching. Did you know, because I don't know what your complete background is, but a lot of times when you started out and you're entrepreneurial, it's good to talk to somebody who's kind of been down the path and can guide you and help you. Did you invest in a coach like that?
That's a good question. No. No, I didn't. I have been blessed to have been surrounded by a lot of really smart people, a lot of whom are entrepreneurs. I didn't have a coach per se. As far as mentors, I've had many, many mentors, starting with my grandfather. I've worked in a family-owned business since I was 8 years old, you know, so I'm very used to the whole entrepreneurial space, I guess you'd say, or mentality, I guess you'd say. You know, my grandfather, I still repeat things that he said to me, to all my employees all the time. Or, you know, oh no, my grandfather always said this. My grandmother always said this. And then my mom, who took over for him, she was an amazing businesswoman. And so I think my husband now, he was the executive director of the Shoah Foundation, but prior to that, I mean, he's owned like three or four businesses. So he's very entrepreneurial. So I think it's just.
This episode is brought to you by 5-Star BDM. 5-Star BDM is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for small to mid-sized businesses and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement in operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our 5-Star business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. The result is more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Please visit www.5starbdm.com to learn more and view all the episodes of Follow the Brand. No, that's what you needed. You need somebody to help you step through those things that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So you've got somebody, especially close.
That's the best thing, though. You know, and people ask me all the time, oh, do you have any more questions? I say, well, you know, I don't know what I don't know. So what am I supposed to ask? What am I supposed to ask next? So I love that. I love that quote. Yeah.
No, that's what it is. But if you already, you were surrounded by people that had done it, not necessarily have to invest in a professional coach that, you know, knew more about the tech industry. But if you had people around you that could help you, like, hey, this is what this is going to be like. This is how we're going to have to write our story. This is how we're going to look at our financial. This is how we got to, assemble our team and look at our organizational structure, because no one's going to want to invest in you just because you just had an idea. Your idea has to have some clothes on it, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, because as I think about this, well, is somebody right now can use the platform, or I see you recorded it now, but no one's going to access it for years and years down the line. So I want to see other ways that you use it. So you've described to me, many use cases, and I like that.
Oh, we had one, the most interesting one, a woman that I talked to in China. She says, I travel a lot. It'd be really, really cool. And this struck me, her use case. It'd be really cool if I could record myself reading all of my children's favorite night bedtime stories. And then they could ask me to read them that story before bed, and I could read it to them and then say, I love you and good night. I thought
that's beautiful. I now just thought of another use case, at least for me, like, let's say, unfortunately, you had a terminal illness.
Oh.
And you knew this was happening, and you had a child who's, you are reading stories to.
We have a gentleman who was diagnosed with ALS at the age, I think, of like 48, 47. It has 2 very young children. And he has a foundation called Paint for a Cure. And so we filmed him, and he wants to tell other people that are newly diagnosed with ALS, what to expect, or what, little tips and tricks and things, and even how to talk to your family about it. But mostly he wanted to leave his story for his kids and tell his whole life story. So, and the other fortunate thing is, by recording his story file, and anyone can do this that is unfortunately diagnosed with this, you're capturing your voice. So those video recordings can actually feed the machines that they now use to talk. So you don't have to talk through an automated voice. You can actually program it to use your own voice if you have enough data. So your story file can now be used, and his foundation is paying for StoryFile Lives for people to do their story files when they're diagnosed, so that they have their story recorded, they have it down, and their family can have it forever, but also they have their voice, which is something that a lot of people don't realize they need to do, I guess, before that happens.
That's very unique. It's like having your fingerprint. Your voice is very, very unique to you. Mm-hmm. And I just thought about, as you were going through that story, about people that have dementia, Alzheimer's, that they know they're going to lose their memories. You want people to know how they were before they got into that state. They still could be living, but the memories are gone. So I see a lot of use cases for that. The family, the caretakers, so, hey, let's go ahead and record this.
Oh, yeah. My husband's father was diagnosed with dementia about 3 years ago, and his daughter said to him, hey, can I use the StoryFile platform? I want to, and at that time it was kind of in its infancy. And so she went and recorded her grandfather, but she said, he's got dementia. He's already, lost a lot of it. But he's never going to meet my children. So she did it for her children.
Right.
But today, 3 years later, he could never have done that story ever. I mean,
that is big. I got to figure out how I'm going to get stock in your company now.
Thank you. I would love that.
Well, this is going to be good. We're going to go ahead and conclude. But before we conclude, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience that you have not shared that you feel is important?
Oh, gosh. I really want to drive home the fact that every story matters. Every person has a story to tell. And, I talk to a lot of people every day, and they're like, oh no, I don't have a story. My life's not interesting. There's not a person that I talk to that I can't learn something from. And it pains me almost when they say that to me, because I'm like, no, you have a story to tell. You have wisdom. If you've lived on this planet for any given amount of time, you have a story to tell. You have a journey, and anyone can learn anything from that journey. But more than that, you just recording and putting out there and preserving your life is truly a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Even just to you, it's a really interesting process to go through. How many times have you thought all about your childhood, or have had conversations and people asking you questions about your elementary school and your parents and your house when you were growing up, and just all the things that make up who you are, and just to do that is quite an experience in itself.
I completely agree with you. We all have a story, and you got to look at the little things. It's the little things that make the story interesting. We all have challenges. I don't know anybody that's been on this earth that have not had challenges. I think that's part of the journey, how you were resilient. You could have been in the most, dire straits at some point in time, but here you are today. Like, that's a story.
It's inspiring.
No matter how that looks.
It's inspiring. Every single person, like you said, it has had some sort of challenge in their life, and some more than others, God forbid. But it's how you deal with that, but it's passing that knowledge on to somebody, so maybe they don't have to go through exactly what you went through, or maybe if they have to go through it, maybe they can take solace, or they take something that you did when you were going through it, that it could help them get through it and move through it. So, yeah.
I completely agree. I've known people that have sickle cell anemia. They've lived a very, very long time. I said, wow, how do you live with a deadly disease? And that, as I thought about that, it's like, wow, that is a story. I said, you know how many people they find out? They're just finding out that they have a deadly disease. And who do they talk to? How do you get through the emotions of that, the psychological effects of that? How do you, help your family and the people that are around you, your circle, so they're not just, coddling you? I mean, how does that work? So you've been working with this for 40 some odd years, and they're like, that's a story that you could share with so many people, but you've made it so easy, because most people think, oh yeah, I got to write a book, and the book is a major undertaking.
A book is that is a big and costly exercise. Extremely.
Yes, I think you've kind of, I see a lot of things that you're doing. I think you've made it very, very simple. So if people want to get in contact with you, what is the best way?
Oh, just Heather@StoryFile.com. And we're on all the usual Instagram, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, LinkedIn, and our website is StoryFile.com. That's super easy.
This has been wonderful, Heather. Thank you for tuning in. I want to tell everybody to tune in to all the episodes and Follow the Brand podcast at www.5starbdm. And that is B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. This has been wonderful. I want you to truly enjoy the rest of your journey. And I can't wait, because I'm going to definitely get one of those story files for myself and my family.
We have to come to your reunion. I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. The Brian Fisher reunion. It's in Omaha, Nebraska. It's always the second Sunday in August. So that's one thing people ask me all the time, how do you get that longevity? I think when my grandmother's grandmother set it up, it was always the same time, meaning the second Sunday in August. It was always the same place, which was in Omaha, Nebraska. But the one thing, we also had a major, large family that was a core family that was there. Even though some of them are spread out, the core family is still there. That's awesome. That made it easy. So you didn't have to worry about like where is it and when is it was already answered. So that made it easy.
Very, very cool. I'm looking forward to getting your story down. your story.
Absolutely. We will do that. Take care.
Great. Thank you.